This is your installation guide for the 50mm 1.2 GM. Quite a popular lens. I mean, 1.2 on a Sony, that's pretty impressive. But now we're gonna make it even better by using our new contour black skin. So this is based off a topography design. It's the reverse version of our contour white, which is super popular. We do have requests for black one, so that's why it's here. If you want an even more subtle version, we do have a shadow contour, which it's spot UV. All the lines are gloss and you can't even see it unless it's in direct light or getting a reflection from the light. So installing your skin is quite easy. What I like to do is just look at the indicators of the cutouts. They should align perfectly, and that's how you know where each section goes. You have your lens hood, you have the body of the lens, you have the arcs for these concave areas, and you have your lens caps. So first, let's start with the hood. Now you can do this both ways. You can leave the hood on, or like me, you like to take them off and do them individually. There are many ways to apply this. I'm showing you my version. What I like to do first, peel it all off. And with two hands, I like to align it with the Sony logo. Now when I'm aligning, I'm just hovering over it. I'm not applying any pressure. And once I find that the Sony logo is completely flush with the cutout, that's when I put on just a little bit of pressure, and then I let the rest fall, and I work on one side. Let's start with the right side, and then we're just gonna lightly tug it. Do not stretch the skin, we're just tugging so it lays flat on the surface. These are precision cuts, so there's no stretching involved. And as you finish one side, you wanna move to the other side. Now these vinyls, they're not gonna stick unless you apply pressure. So once we have that aligned, we're just gonna roll the vinyl, and as it gets to the end, you see where the seams come together, they should just fall into place and disappear. And once you have that done, you can slowly go over them with your fingers lightly to apply pressure, and that should activate the adhesive. Now, if you notice any bubbles, just go ahead and rub them off. These do have air release channels, so you can easily get rid of the bubbles. Now we're going to do the underside of the hood, and that is these arc sections right here. We like to call them eyebrows. And what you want to do is you want to look out for cutouts for the indicators, such as this red dot here. We're going to go ahead and peel that off gently because you don't want to deform or stretch them. And I like to use both hands and fingers. So what I like to do is find that dot, align it with the cutout. And this part is very crucial. You want to close the seams. You don't want any seams visible. So you want to push this to where it's flush and touching the top skin. So that way it looks very cohesive and it looks like it came from the factory like that. There's no breakage or seams with the skin. Now, because of the skin design, it's a little bit hard to get everything perfectly aligned. So you're gonna see a little mismatch here and there, but just know that because we're covering up the seams, it looks a lot more complete. Now we do the same for the other side. And if you do apply it correctly, you can tell that the red dot will show up after you apply it. Very simple. You want to find the indicator and the indicator cutout. So now you know that this section is for the top piece. Now these are laid out in sequence, so each piece is for every section of the lens that you see. So it starts from the top to the bottom. And it's a great idea to start from the top to the bottom, as that will give you a leading guide on where each piece goes. Again, we want to align the red dot. Once you have that aligned, you want to make sure it's flush with the top and bottom. And then what I like to do is roll the lens. I like to hold on to it and not move it, and then I'll just roll the lens. That way the vinyl is not moving too much and you're getting a really straight application. So I like to start with one side first. And you will get a little overlap here just to cover that beveled edge, the chamfered edge actually. And next we'll move to the other side, same thing. You want to roll the lens so that way you can just peel and apply, and it should keep it real straight. And then when the seams meet, you just want to close it off. And again, this is for the 51.2, we do overlap it a bit so it can go over the chamfered edges. Yes, we did think about that. It's not a design fault. Next, we want to move on to the body with the G logo. Very simple. One thing I want to note is around these cutouts where it's getting really close to the edge, it's quite fragile. So what I like to do is pre-peel from both sides. So you want to slowly peel from one side, and you want to slowly peel from the other side. By the time you get to the other half, you're not using too much strength to peel that off, so it just comes off easier, and there's very little stretching done on these fragile areas. Again, we just want to align it with the cutout and the logo. It should just fall into place. You should do very little aligning here. Once it falls into place, you want to check that all the cutouts are covered. And what I like to do is just apply a little bit of pressure to one section, and then I can move on to the next. So that way, once you're slightly tugging it, it's not going to pull it out of position. And everything should just fall into place. These are precision cut, you can see that. Everything just falls into place. There's no need to stretch or tug or pull on these vinyls. And that's it. Once you confirm that it's perfectly aligned, there's no protrusion or shortages, go ahead and just rub it with your fingers. Again, you can use a towel for this as well. I like to use my fingers, it's a lot faster. Next, we're gonna move on to the aperture ring. Now, before we move on to the aperture ring, it's very important that the skins do not impede the utility of the lens, such as the rotation of the aperture ring or the rotation of the focus ring. So if you have skin protruding out, it's gonna stick to the ring and you're not gonna be able to rotate it as freely. So be very mindful that the skins are flush and aligned perfectly before you move on to another section. Okay, so the aperture ring, this part you want to be very careful. We have a lot of precision cuts and they're very tiny. So when you peel this, peel it as gently as possible. And now if you did mess up, go ahead and just email us, live chat. We'll go ahead and send out a replacement part if that's the case. Again, you want to find the indicator. Obviously, I can tell that there's an A here and I can tell this is upside down. And what we're gonna do is we're not gonna stretch this one at all. We're just gonna lay it down because any little stretch or deformation will ruin the alignment of all these little indicators. So we'll start with the A. Once I have the A, I'm just gonna put a little bit of pressure there. And as you can see, all the little indicators, the cutouts should fall right into it. It's very seamless. Look at that. Every indicator perfectly aligned. You don't have to stretch this. It should come perfectly aligned. You can see here, if you apply correctly, there should be no interference or impedance of the ring. Again, next we move on to the bottom section, and this is as straightforward as it can be. You want to align the top indicator with the cutout for the 51.2 GM indicator. Same technique as always. We're just gonna roll the lens and we're just gonna hold the vinyl. Make sure we're not intruding on the other section of the lens and it's aligned and flush. Next, we're gonna apply the eyebrows. With the arc sections, I like to apply with the seams on the side. This will give you a really clean top view. So usually the seam starts at where the E-mount white indicator is. And when you apply this, you want to make sure the skin is right next to the other one, so it has a seamless look. You don't want any gaps. It's going to be more visible if you have a brighter skin, or if you have a contrasting skin, such as a white skin on black, or black on white, or even yellow. A lot of these skins will show seams. So what you want to do is you want to be extremely cautious of that. And the final piece, again, look for the indicator. With the cutout, it should just fit right in. And we're going to do the same technique as before. We're just going to roll it, and we're going to make sure that there's no seams from the previous vinyl. That is your quick guide on how to install a skin on your 5012 GM from Sony.